Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
The dominant way of speaking at the governmental level and among solidarity groups about the struggles of Palestinians and Ukrainians often creates separation between us. With this letter and with this call to you today, I want to reject these divisions. I want you to join me in rejecting these divisions and affirm our solidarity with everyone who is oppressed and struggling for freedom. As activists committed to freedom, human rights, democracy and social justice, and while fully acknowledging the differences in power and perception of us, we firmly condemn attacks on civilian populations. Deliberate targeting of civilians is a war crime, and there can be no justification for collective punishment of the Palestinian people, identifying all residents of Gaza with Hamas, and indiscriminate use of the term terrorism applied to the whole Palestinian resistance. Echoing multiple UN resolutions, we know that there will be no lasting peace without justice for the people of Palestine. Lasting peace and justice are only possible with the end of the ongoing occupation of Palestine. Palestinians have the right to self-determination and resistance against Israel's occupation, just like Ukrainians have the right to resist the Russian invasion. Our solidarity comes from a place of anger at the injustice and a place of deep pain of knowing the devastating impacts of occupation, shelling of civilian infrastructures, humanitarian blockade, from experiences in our homeland in Ukraine. Watching the Israeli targeting of civilian infrastructure in Gaza, the Israeli humanitarian blockade, the occupation in the West Bank resonates especially painfully with us. From this place of pain and experience of solidarity, we call on our fellow Ukrainians globally and all the people to raise their voices in support of the Palestinian people and to condemn the ongoing Israeli mass ethnic cleansing. We reject the Ukrainian government's statements that express support for Israel's military actions. We consider Ukrainian government's calls to avoid civilian casualties in Gaza belated and insufficient. This position is a retreat from the support of Palestinian rights and condemnation of Israel's occupation, which Ukraine has followed for decades, including voting in the UN. We are aware of the so-called pragmatic reasoning behind Ukrainian government's decision to echo Western allies on whom we are dependent for our survival. This is why we see Ukrainian government's current support of Israel and dismissing of Palestinian right to self-determination as contradictory to Ukraine's own commitment to human rights and fight for our land and freedom. Absolutely. We as Ukrainians should stand in solidarity not with the oppressors, but with those who experience and resist oppression, with the Palestinians. We also strongly object to equating of Western military aid to Ukraine and to Israel by some politicians in the States and here. Ukraine does not occupy the territories of other people. Instead, it fights against the Russian occupation, and therefore international assistance to Ukraine serves a just cause and protection of international law. Israel, in contrast, has occupied and annexed Palestinian and Syrian territories, and Western aid to it confirms an unjust order and demonstrates double standards in relation to international law and to common sense and to a common humanity. We call for an urgent ceasefire. We call on the Israeli government to immediately stop attacks on civilians, to provide and to allow provision of humanitarian aid. We insist on an immediate and indefinite lifting of siege on Gaza, an urgent relief operation to restore civilian infrastructure. We call on the Israel government to put an end to the occupation and recognize the right of Palestinian displaced people to return to their lands. We call on the Ukrainian government to condemn the use of state terror and humanitarian blockade against Gazan civilians and reaffirm the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. We also call on the Ukrainian government to condemn deliberate assault on Palestinians in the occupied Western Bank. Finally, we call on international media and on you, on our comrades here, to stop pitting Palestinians and Ukrainians against each other, while hierarchies of suffering perpetuate racist rhetoric and dehumanize those under attack. We call for solidarity among all oppressed.
Yes.
We have witnessed the world uniting in solidarity for the people of Ukraine in the past 16 or 17 months, and we call on everyone to do the same for the people of Palestine. Thank you.